I've taken a completely different tack. I'm not talking about my university. I'm talking about distance education in the United States. Okay, to give us broader context, I've given 2 seminars already here, one last week and one when I was here in December, and there's one on Monday, which I want to talk about the online graduate program I've built and direct. Just a little bit comment about myself. I have my bachelor's in education from Buffalo, New York. I have a Master of Fine Arts in Visual Studies, Photographic Studies out of Rochester, New York. And I have my doctorate in education and educational technology out of University of Wisconsin in Madison. So I bring all those to bear into my own thinking. The VASA project is an online media education workshop. It's a global project. Is this kind of loud? I'm kind of, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's, do I need this? Yes. Oh, I need it for him. Okay. Stephanie, can we turn down the volume on this because it's distorted and I tend to project a lot. And, you know, here. But this, talking about the global project, we'll be talking about that on Monday as well as the online graduate program in New Media and Global Ed, which was the first completely online graduate program at my university. And how's that? Better? No? Okay, maybe I'm done. No. Okay. Anyway, let me move on because I don't want to get into stuff. One of the things that's now being asked in the United States, and I'll preface that by everything I talk about right now is pretty much my perspective of the United States, is that they're addressing issues that there's different ways of learning. There's different ways of teaching. And people are beginning to question the traditional higher education professor being in a lecture hall or in a classroom where everything is teacher-centered in K-12 education. They're looking at different learning theories that emerge out of neo-behaviorism and goes to social constructivism, Vygotsky and that group, okay? So, just a little brief history because I think to understand what's happening in the US and maybe on a much broader Western European arena is we have to contextualize everything in history. Without a sense of history, we tend to be lost. We just make decisions. Okay, in the 1950s, post-World War II, B.F. Skinner introduces his teaching machine and the idea of programmed instruction, individualized programmed instruction. And it is based upon neo-behaviorist learning theory and was proposed to improve learning and to eliminate one of the variables that causes problems in education, and that was the classroom teacher. Okay? Programmed learning removes the classroom teacher. And that's a very important point because a lot of the improvements and promises of technology in the United States is to improve education, and the variable there is the classroom teacher. Okay? We have something called No Child Left Behind, which is a national testing system. North Carolina, where I'm from, also had their own state system, testing system. And what happens is if a school does not show improvement on these tests, a couple things can happen. One, they can remove all the teachers. Second, they can remove the administration and bring in new people. Teachers, if the test scores go up, they get more money. Okay? So the motivation there is to teach to the test, to do well with the test. So seeing technology as an aid or a supplement to teaching and learning is critical to a lot of teachers' lives. Okay? In 1993, as you all know, the web went graphic. Okay? And because of that, the world changed. I think it's very important to remember. With the web being graphic and the network forming, okay, everything changed from business to education to communication technologies. Okay? What this is a short video clip. In 1992, AT&T came out with a vision of the future for technology in the future. It dealt with voice activation, it dealt with avatars, which will assist you in making decisions. It dealt with telecommunications and teleconferencing and all these visions. And what's interesting is most of it's come true. Okay? There was a scenario, a story going through the video about this school school principal trying to have a community center built because she was in a low-income area. And a person was trying to knock down those buildings to build a expensive high-rise. Okay, so what we see here is the city planner who's in charge of giving permits for building, meeting with her, telling her her argument was not accepted, okay? How do we, just hit there. Okay. Actually, it was 1993. I was off by a year.
Thank you for coming. I didn't think you would after the way I spoke to you the other day.
Don't worry about that. I didn't come with any good news, though, Ms. Ortiz. I came because the material you sent me showed a lot of caring and concern.
I want to show you something. This is an electronic classroom. When we link to the Education Center in Washington, D.C., we have in this school the very best teachers. And although they are computer generated, they can interact with each student individually at his or her level, providing that special help exactly when and where it's needed. Not all the children in this neighborhood get that kind of attention at home. That's why it's become so very important for us to establish a community center.
Okay, what's critical in her discourse is the fact that they provide the very best teachers, okay? Even though they're computer generated, right? They're the very best teachers. And the curriculum is controlled by a server, it's on a server, in Washington, D.C. So what's implied there back in 92, 93 is a standardized national curriculum that's being delivered through technology, right, with avatar teachers. And they're the best teachers possible. We have to understand that in relationship to classroom teachers. Again, if you look through the history of education in the United States, classroom teachers have always been attacked. So in the 1990s, as that video begins to represent, we have something called integrated learning systems that brought together the increasing power of digital processors, computers is the general term, with educational programmed learning. Everything is combined together within a program. Students, if they're having trouble, are branched off to have review for support, etc. But it's all encased within the program. And the promise is that it's effective and it's efficient, and children learn with that. Okay? And you don't have the biases of teachers coming in or the lack. In the United States, sometimes you'll have a math teacher or an art teacher teaching mathematics because they're shorthanded. You had teachers who were not certified or educated in particular areas teaching. Okay. In 2000, right, we're jumping through real fast, we had the emergence of the virtual schools. From 5th to 12th grade, we find schools started off in Florida. They're completely online or they're supplemental. Students could take classes. And also in North Carolina is another example. For example, in the 2000s, and this is between 2000 and 2010, in 2009 to 2010, the Florida school had 97,000 students taking classes. That's 97,000 students taking virtual classes. They may be in a school taking it, they may be from home, they're not place-bound or time-bound. They're taking classes online. Now remember, this freshmen coming into my universities in the States are 18 years old, roughly. They were born around 1990, who's the mathematicians here? 1992. No, everybody goes, I don't know, you know. Okay, quick subtraction. They were born 1 year before the internet went graphic. Imagine what they've grown up with. So to take online courses along with their Facebook, along with their iTunes and everything else, right? It's not that unusual for them to be working this way, okay? They also offer over 125 different courses online. Now, when these kids come to a higher education, They come to a university like mine, Appalachian State, or Chapel Hill, or Melbourne, or someplace else, and they have to sit in a lecture hall of 150 people, where the instructor, to have connection, has to walk up and down the stairs with probably a remote control and a microphone like this, right? They're saying, what? Right? I'm going to check my email. I'm going to see what's happening on Facebook, right? Or the instructor, and this has happened, will say something, and the students will raise their hand and say, well, according to Wikipedia, okay, that's not correct, okay? Okay, so you're stuck, you're caught, okay? But learning, the key is learning is not time-based or space-bound. And in the US, if you look at the changing nature of older learners, people lost jobs. The recession hit hard, as well in other countries around the world. Some jobs will never come back. They have to go through career changes. They have to learn new things. They cannot just get up and travel to a university, travel 3-4 hours a day each way to take classes. So distance education is critical to those students, as well as we see in high school students, etc. In Australia, which was a leader in distance education, using radio education as well as other formats, right? I'm surprised that Melbourne isn't part of that, right? But that's what I want to talk about on Monday, breaking from those traditions and ways of thinking. Okay, but give you a sense in the United States, the growth of virtual schools. For example, in Florida Virtual School, they've increased of 25% from 2000 to 2008. They're supplemental and full-time, and some offer both. These are the number of students enrolled. I'm not going to go through all these, right? But you can see there's a remarkable growth in online education in the States. Part of that is also seeing it as a cash cow. Universities are looking at this as a cash cow. Sometimes. With cash cow, you know what that phrase means? Money. Money, right? We can offer a online computer science course, Introduction to Computer Science, right? And we can have thousands of students in it with one instructor because it's already programmed and made up, and they just oversee the running of it. It's like those lecture halls or cash cows. How many students can you get in there means more money coming into the university, okay? And the teaching of the instructor has to change drastically, right? When you have 100 students or 75 students or 150 compared to having 25. What you can do changes drastically. But this is to talk about the growth of virtual schools, high schools in the United States, and we're seeing virtual education going down to the middle school. If the universities do not respond to that, they will be left behind. They will go different places. People will be going to private schools online like Phoenix University and Kaplan and others. Okay? Also, we have laptop projects and one computer per one student. There's a very poor county in North Carolina called Greene County, North Carolina. It's an agricultural area that was devastated when the tobacco industry died, right? Teachers, it's low income area. Teachers tend not to stay because of that. There's nothing there, right? There's nothing there. And I've talked to teachers who've been there. The school board allocated something like $3 or $4 million. They went with Apple computers because of Apple's commitment to education. They made their high schools and then middle schools wireless. There's no textbooks. They use the internet. Okay? And it changed how students learn and how teachers teach in those environments. But each child has a laptop. It's given to them. Well, it's loaned to them. And they just pay a $40 fee per year for insurance. So in case it's stolen, it falls off the table, something happens. But they made a real commitment to doing that in this one county, low income. They figured the only way their students will have a chance to compete, to get into higher education or for jobs, is if they have the computer skills, okay? And ways of thinking. It's not just having computer skills, it changes how you think about doing things. We also see in the states where Richmond, Virginia has gone to a one-to-one relationship. State of Michigan started giving it to seniors in high school, 18-year-olds, then juniors, sophomores, freshmen, and now in the middle school. Michigan is doing the same. Maine and Michigan are doing the same thing. Other districts are doing the same. because they understand we need to change. The universities still tend not to change, okay? We're very conservative. Higher education, we have Phoenix University, which is one of the largest. And I went to their website. I couldn't get numbers on how many students they have, but it's in the thousands. And it's completely online university. They do have some sites, some face-to-face, but basically it's known as the first major university, and it's a profit-making university. That's how they justified it within the state system, and it supports itself. The professors that are hired are actually university professors. So it's not just hiring somebody off the street to teach a course, right? But these are people who are professors or associate professors at different universities. And you could teach, okay? I looked at, out of curiosity, I looked at applying for a job when I was at University of Northern Iowa. I was just curious, right? They have to send transcripts in, or what is a reference, everything that you talked about. Where is she? Okay, talked about in applying for a job in the States. It was a very tight review system. And then you only have like 8 to 10 students in a class, okay? But what I didn't like about it was the curriculum and the textbook was already set. I could not bring myself to that, okay? But I was just curious because there was a lot of concern about Phoenix University, whether it's really what they call a diploma mill. A diploma mill is just they churn out diplomas. It's real simple. You pay your money, you get a degree, okay? And people are concerned about that. A new university just popped up called the University of the People. Has anybody heard of that? It's a free university on a global scale, and it's geared towards people in developing countries. And what professors will do is volunteer to teach particular courses or to moderate those courses and discussions with the students. They don't get paid for it. But what we see here is an attempt using the internet, using distance education, to engage learners who normally would never have the chance. Right? They're not from a Western developed country. They're in a low-income developing country. So that's an interesting development. And it's only probably about a year old, somewhere around there. It's based in California. It's licensed in California and certified there. People will receive bachelor's degrees, etc. Okay? The growth of the internet in the United States, you can see, if you can see the colors, I'm not sure how it's projecting out there. But basically, 100%, nobody really has 100% access to the internet. One of the areas we have problems in the United States is rural areas. How do you get internet to people in the rural areas? When I was living outside Boone, North Carolina, which is in the mountains, it was a 20-minute drive to my university, usually on mountain roads, I didn't have internet. I had to go to satellite, huge satellite, terrible connection. And this is back around about 2002. Expensive, but because of what I do, I needed access. But you could see, you know, and that's one of the problems we have. In Sweden, my understanding is, before a company can come in to offer internet, the license agreement is that everybody in the country will have the same access. So if you're in a rural fishing village, you're in a rural farm area, or you're in Stockholm, you will have the same kind of access. So when you look at statistics about Sweden, it's very high. In Finland, very high access rate and bandwidth. That's why. In the United States, they auction off the bandwidth to the highest bidders, not to the service they're providing. Okay, so basically you can see the growth and the use of internet. Here's by countries in 2009. By the way, this is just grabbed off Google. Okay, you know, and here's Italy. Okay, this is individual gigabytes per month. Right, 10.5. This is South Korea, is way off the scale. U.S. is over here. Germany, etc. Okay, but you could see, and China's not on there, which is interesting. But this is the amount of gigabytes traffic, internet traffic per user. Okay, so people in Korea are using internet a lot more than other people in the world. Another scale to give you a sense, because I think you have to contextualize Italy within a much broader global movement and understanding how it fits. And this is 41% is in Asia, which is primarily China, I would assume. 16% is North America, which includes Canada. We can't forget Canada in North America. And then you go to Latin America, etc., is broken up. The pie is broken up. Okay? In 2010, we saw a shift. The change occurred, right? It was the iPad and what it symbolizes. And we have the elimination of textbooks. In Japan, there's a school district, I think it's in Tokyo, has eliminated all paper textbooks. Everything is online. Okay, digital textbooks, right? But it changed now to how people will communicate, how they will learn, how they access information in a very comfortable way. We're not carrying around different size laptops. If you had a chance to play with this, if you go to Google Documents, it's called part of the cloud technologies. You could do all your word processing, spreadsheets, you could share, collaborate with people, everything. That way, and all you need is this little computer, it is a computer, to work with. Mobile phone technologies to deliver education, to access information, etc. In the same way the youth are here in Italy, right? How many times have you gone out someplace and somebody says, you know, who was the first pope? Okay, or something. Or who's going to the, you know, the NFL football game, this, you know, who's going to be at the Super Bowl? You just searched on the web and you got the information. Okay, how do you get somewhere? Where do you find restaurants, right? How do you access scientific information, pharmaceutical information? How do you, this is what people are doing now. Is the university engaging this technology, this system for learning and accessing information within the schools? Is it being legitimated and accepted as a way of teaching and working? Then we have after 2020s, and we have the idea of singularity. And Ray Kurzweil is a major name associated with that. But it's the joining of the biological and the non-biological. Most of us are cyborgs, right? If you're wearing glasses, you're dependent upon technology. If you have some fillings in your teeth, you're dependent on technology. If you have a hip replacement, if you're searching the web, right now we're dependent on technology. We are connected with the network. If you have a cell phone that's turned on, you are connected to the global network, right? It's the merging of the biological and the non-biological to a point they're looking at in 2021, 2022, where the computer power will serve a laptop computer, if they have laptops then, right, will surpass the human brain processing power. You have intelligent machines. That's where our computer scientists come in, engineers. Those intelligent machines will take over a lot of the responsibilities. And in science fiction movies, it's always the robots, it's always the negative technology that's going to dominate the world and kill humanity. What they're arguing in singularity is we need to come together with the technology, with the system, with the processor, with the intelligence of the computer, and work together with that. But we know we now have brain implants, chips put into the brain to help people who are paralyzed. They think and they run a computer. They think and they can move their wheelchair. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. We have expanded access to the networks, right? Internet and networks and information. We have computer processing power extending. It just grows and grows. How fast and how small things can get and how cheap it's becoming. And we have technology and humans working together more and more. Intelligent systems, okay? So out of all that, the question might be, you know, how are higher education, how will this university, as well as other universities around the world, begin to respond? How will it affect learning and instruction? Are we going to change, or are we going to keep classrooms like this? Okay? Are we going to make everything professor-centered, or is it going to be a different type of learning system? What kind of learning theories do we apply? What will the roles of teachers and learners be? How will institutions change, if they change at all, or they may just disappear? We got how the community change, and what concepts of knowledge How will we begin thinking about knowing differently? Epistemology, right? So some questions. As processors become smaller and cheaper and more powerful, will schools need to exist as they do now? In 20, 30 years, will this university, as well as other universities, need to exist the way they now exist? The brick and mortar. Okay? For example, Elizabeth and I co-teach a class together. Italian students and American students. We do it over the internet. We use free social networking software called Ning. We use Skype and other things that are free. We put Italians and Americans together with the promise of no romance, okay? And, you know, we've been doing this twice. We're going to be doing it this fall again, bringing our students together for that experience. You talk about cross-cultural experience, language challenges. We use Google Translate when necessary, okay, etc. Will the school really need to exist? Students work from home. My students are not on campus. They're all over the state of North Carolina. Okay? I live in the Netherlands. My visa, residency visa is German. I live in Germany and the Netherlands. I have an Italian work permit and a US passport. And I have an address in the States. Where do I belong, right? You know? So how will teachers and learners be defined? How do we begin to think about what teachers do, what professors do? Okay? And global citizens and no borders, no visas. We see at the EU, it's much easier, as you know, better than I do, about mobility now within Europe. As that begins to spread, right? The idea of national borders, national governments will disappear. What challenges, how do you maintain a cultural identity? How do you hold on to what's important, etc.? Okay? In the same way, Italian Americans over the last couple decades have been trying to reconnect with their grandparents who maybe immigrated from Italy. And it was all these holidays, Italian American festivals and stuff, people learning Italian. I mean, I'm here, right? My grandparents immigrated in 1900 from Sicily and from Rome to the States. So basically, there's a lot of questions we have to ask. This university has to ask. Okay? So anyway, I don't have an address. This is just my email. Right? I exist in different places. It doesn't matter. As long as I have broadband, I'm connected to my students, to my colleagues, to my family, to strangers who spam me. Okay? I'm connected with them. And some spam is interesting. Okay, that was a context for looking at the United States and distance education. What is happening? And the same question we're asking, in closure, right? Same question we're asking is how will universities change if they change at all? We see private credentialing. Microsoft and other companies give credentials which are worth more than degrees for getting jobs, okay? We see a huge increase in our two-year college system because they're meeting the needs for jobs more so than the university. Etc. Okay, I think that's, oh, one more quick thing. If you'll come back Monday, we'll talk about the graduate program. But my instructors are in Poland, they're in Germany, they're in Netherlands. There's one that goes back and forth between the UK and Berkeley. And I'm different places, and I got 2 or 3 in North Carolina. My students are all in North Carolina because of the cost if they're outside North Carolina. But that's the global vision. Instructors don't need to meet.